Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in life when you have to make peace with who you are. You've cried enough tears trying to be understood. You've bent yourself backward trying to please people who were never for you in the first place. Let me say this loud and clear. You don't owe explanations to those who are committed to misunderstanding you. We are not here to explain ourselves to demons, to people, voices, or forces that distort our identity, question our worth, or feed our fears. A healthy soul is not one that chases approval. It's one that stands in truth, anchored in purpose, surrounded by grace. You're not called to be understood by everyone. You're called to be obedient, not approved. You're called to walk in light, not debate in the dark. So today, I invite you to step into freedom. Let go of the urge to explain, justify, or defend. Instead, let's focus on cultivating what matters most: a healthy, healed, and holy soul. There's something sacred about your story. Every page of your life, every heartbreak, every triumph, every moment you thought you wouldn't make it but did. It all holds weight. It all carries the fingerprints of grace. And yet, so often we feel the need to explain it, to unpack it, to defend it to people who were never meant to hold it in the first place. Some people won't understand you, not because you're complicated, but because they're committed to misunderstanding you. You could sit down with your heart wide open, tell them every detail, every reason, every intention, and they'd still walk away saying, "See, I told you." Not because you weren't clear, not because you weren't honest, but because they already decided who you were before you even opened your mouth. You don't owe your soul to people who twist your story to suit their narrative. There are people in your life who don't see your growth because they never intended to. It doesn't matter how much you've changed, how much you've healed, how much effort you've put in. They still see you through the lens of your past, through the eyes of their own insecurity, through a filter of control. And the more you try to explain, the tighter their grip becomes. You find yourself tangled up in their expectations, trapped in the courtroom of their opinions, always on trial for being yourself. But you are not called to be on trial. You are called to be free. There comes a point when you have to stop giving people access to rooms they keep trying to burn down. You can't keep explaining your boundaries to those who only feel powerful when you're exhausted. You can't keep offering insight to people who've already made up their minds about your heart. You are not here to make everyone comfortable with your transformation. You see, growth offends those who benefit from your brokenness. There are people who liked you better when you didn't know who you were, when you played small, when you didn't ask for more, when you allowed them to take up space in your life without giving anything back. The moment you start healing, the moment you start speaking up, drawing lines, setting standards, that's when the accusations begin. You've changed. You're selfish. You think you're better than us. No, you're not selfish. You're not arrogant. You're just finally whole enough to stop bleeding for people who cut you. And let me tell you this, there is a freedom that comes when you no longer feel the need to be understood. When you can look someone in the eye, hear their doubts, feel their judgment, and still say, "I bless you, but I don't need you to agree with me." That's power. That's maturity. That's a healthy soul. You were never meant to beg for respect. You were never meant to plead for peace. There is a peace that surpasses understanding. And sometimes it surpasses their understanding too. God didn't place purpose inside of you just so you could constantly explain it to people who refuse to grow. Some of you are holding back your destiny, not because you're unqualified, but because you're tired of defending it. Every time you try to step forward, here comes the questions. Why now? Who do you think you are? Why can't you just stay where you are? But let me remind you, your calling isn't up for debate. It doesn't need to be dissected. It needs to be obeyed. And I know it's hard. It's hard when the people you love don't get it, when your family doesn't see the vision, when your friends mock your decisions, when the people you thought would cheer you on are the ones whispering behind your back. But I want you to understand this. Agreement is not a requirement for obedience. You can still walk in your assignment even when no one claps for you. You can still rise even when they doubt you. You can still be everything God created you to be, even if you have to walk alone for a season. Stop explaining yourself to demons, those voices that wear human faces but carry spiritual weight. They might smile at you, but they are sent to derail you. They don't want answers, they want authority. They want to keep you in a place of questioning so you never have the confidence to move forward. But today is the day you take your story back. Today is the day you reclaim your peace. Today is the day you stop negotiating with the enemy over territory that belongs to you. You were never meant to be a prisoner of public opinion. You are royalty, you are chosen, you are set apart, so act like it. Walk like it, and if they don't understand, let them talk. While they talk, you'll be building. While they gossip, you'll be growing. While they question, you'll be climbing. And one day, they'll look up and wonder how you got so far. The answer: you stopped wasting time explaining yourself to people who didn't have the grace to carry your truth. And maybe the hardest part isn't dealing with others, it's dealing with you. Maybe the voice you need to silence the most is your own. That inner critic that says, you should tell them, you should fix it, you should explain. But what if the real power is in silence? What if the real strength is in letting go? Not every conversation deserves a response. Not every accusation deserves a rebuttal. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is say nothing and keep walking. Because silence is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's knowing when to fight and when to fly. It's knowing that your energy is sacred, that your voice is powerful, and that you don't have to throw pearls before swine to prove you're valuable. And yes, I know there's a part of you that wants to be understood, that still aches for closure, that still longs for someone to say, I'm sorry I misjudged you. But let me tell you, waiting for that apology might keep you stuck in a place you've already outgrown. Some people won't say sorry, not because they're right, but because your healing threatens their narrative. They don't want to admit that you survived without them, that you flourished despite the fire, that you made it through not because they helped you, but because you trusted God. And that's what it comes down to, isn't it? Trust. Do you trust what's in you more than you fear what they'll say about you? Do you trust your purpose more than you need their permission? Stop explaining yourself to demons. And I don't just mean people, I mean thoughts, patterns, memories, addictions, those inner voices that say, you're not enough. You failed too much. No one will believe you. Those voices are not from God. They are counterfeit, sent to confuse you, sent to distract you, sent to drain you. You don't argue with demons. You cast them out. You don't negotiate with fear. You declare the truth. You don't cower to insecurity. You stand in the identity that was purchased for you. You are not who they said you were. You are not who you used to be. You are not the worst thing you've ever done or the biggest failure you've ever experienced. You are redeemed. You are called. You are whole. So stop trying to explain why you're happy now, why you're at peace, why you cut off certain people, why you don't go to certain places, why you love yourself too much to stay in that toxic cycle. You don't need to justify healing. You don't need to defend joy. You don't need to apologize for peace. Let the fruit speak for itself. Let your actions preach the sermon. Let your life be the evidence. You've cried enough tears trying to convince people you're worth loving. You've said enough words trying to make people stay. Now it's time to move different, to speak less and shine more, to hold your head high, not in arrogance, but in assurance. Assurance that you've been handpicked, set free, and called higher. If they wanted to understand, they would have asked. If they wanted to grow with you, they would have evolved. But some people can't go where you're going, not because they're bad people, but because they're not ready. And if you keep dragging unready people into your next season, you'll miss the fullness of what's ahead. Let them go. Let them misunderstand. Let them talk. And while they do, you keep walking toward purpose, toward peace, toward power. Because when your soul is healthy, your spirit no longer needs validation. And when your spirit no longer needs validation, your life becomes unstoppable. You are not what happened to you. You are not what they said about you. You are not the labels others tried to place on your life. The world may try to define you by your mistakes, your failures, your shortcomings, but that's not who you are. Your identity isn't up for debate. It's not on the table for discussion. It doesn't belong in the hands of critics, cynics, or confused people who never took the time to know your heart. You were formed with intention, designed with precision, called with purpose. And here's the truth: the more you grow into who you really are, the more some people will try to talk you out of it. The more you walk in confidence, the more they'll try to make you second guess it. The moment you start saying, I am valuable, I am loved, I am chosen, there will always be someone trying to remind you of the version of yourself they were more comfortable with, the broken version, the insecure version, the silent version. But you don't have to live there anymore. You don't have to keep returning to places where your value is questioned just because your absence makes others uncomfortable. You were not created to shrink yourself so other people feel tall. Some people won't recognize your identity because they only ever knew your wounds. But just because they knew your pain doesn't mean they have the right to dismiss your healing. You are not their memory of who you were. You are God's vision of who you are becoming. When you begin to rise into your real identity, you'll notice the resistance. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're doing something right. You're walking in truth. And truth always agitates the lies. The enemy loves to stir up doubt. He loves to whisper lies like, you're a fraud, you're pretending, you're not good enough. But those are distractions. He doesn't fight what isn't threatening. The reason the attacks have increased is because you're stepping into your assignment. He's trying to get you to explain what only God can affirm. He wants to pull you back into a conversation about your worth when God has already settled the matter. You're not defined by the opinions of people who didn't create you. You're not validated by how loud the applause is or how many people agree with you. Your identity is sealed by the one who called you out of the shadows and into the light. And let me tell you something important. You don't need to audition for a role you've already been cast in. You don't need to keep proving your heart, your gifts, your intentions to people who are more interested in misunderstanding you than supporting you. There will always be voices that say, you're too much, or you're not enough. But those voices don't get to narrate your story. That job belongs to the one who knew you before you were formed in your mother's womb. You may have made mistakes, but you are not a mistake. You may have fallen short, but grace has never failed to meet you. Your past may be messy, but your future is still holy. And when God rewrites your story, the old chapters don't get the final word. So stop trying to make everyone see your worth. You don't have to convince people who are spiritually blind to recognize your light. Some people have dusty lenses, cloudy hearts, hardened spirits, and no matter how bright your light shines, they'll always say it's dim, but you keep shining anyway. Let them say you're arrogant. Let them say you've changed. Let them talk. Their confusion doesn't cancel your calling. Their doubt doesn't erase your destiny. And their disbelief doesn't weaken your worth. You were created to stand out, not to fit in. You weren't made to blend with the crowd, but to rise above the noise. You don't have to explain your fire to people who have no flame. Let your identity speak. Let your fruit show. You're not here to perform. You're here to walk in power. And yes, you may have to lose some people along the way. Not because you're unloving, but because they were never aligned with your assignment. It hurts, but it's holy. Because you can't carry your cross and drag their approval at the same time. Your calling will cost you comfort. It will cost you popularity. It may even cost you some relationships. But what you gain in peace, in clarity, in purpose, it's worth everything. And speaking of cost, let's talk about your oil, because the truth is, not everyone deserves access to your anointing. You have oil. Yes, you. You've got a fire, a gift, a light inside you that was born through trials. You didn't wake up one day and become this strong. You went through some things. You cried some tears nobody saw. You fought battles in the dark. You healed from wounds that should have broken you. Your oil is expensive. Don't spill it for people who don't honor it. You keep pouring and pouring, hoping they'll change, hoping they'll see, hoping they'll rise. But all they do is criticize, minimize, and you're left drained, wondering why you're tired, why you're anxious, why your peace keeps leaking. It's because you're wasting oil. You're giving sacred energy to people who refuse to carry their own cross. You're carrying dead weight when you've got a mission to fulfill. And the truth is, you can't carry someone else's unwillingness and still walk in your fullness. You were called to serve, but not to be used. You were called to love, but not to be drained. There's a difference between helping and being held hostage. Some of the people in your life don't want healing. They want handouts. They want the benefits of your strength without the responsibility of their own. And every time you try to explain why you're pulling back, why you're setting boundaries, why you're choosing peace, they play the victim. But don't fall for it. A healthy soul doesn't negotiate with manipulation. It's not your job to be their savior. It's not your job to fix them, carry them, rescue them from consequences they keep choosing. You're not being selfish for stepping away. You're being wise. You're being obedient. You're protecting your peace. Because when God gives you an assignment, He expects you to protect your all. You can't afford to be spiritually bankrupt trying to fill up people who have holes in their cup. There comes a time when you have to say, I love you, but I can't carry you. I can walk beside you. I can pray for you. I can speak life over you, but I can't want your healing more than you do. It's not cruel. It's not unkind. It's called stewardship. And a healthy soul understands that your energy, your time, your spirit, it's sacred. Even Jesus didn't chase after everyone. He went where He was received. He poured into those who were open. He gave freely, yes, but He also knew when to walk away. And so must you. You've got a future to build, a purpose to pursue, a destiny to fulfill. You can't keep explaining why you're not available like you used to be, why you don't answer every call, why you're not jumping into every crisis. It's because you're finally honoring your oil. It's okay to outgrow old versions of yourself. It's okay to say no without explaining why. It's okay to protect your space, your energy, your heart. You've got too much purpose to waste it in the pit. Let them think you're selfish. Let them call you distant. Let them say you're too spiritual, too focused, too driven. They don't know what it cost you to carry what you carry. They don't know the nights you spent crying, praying, seeking. They don't know the weight of your calling. But God does, and that's enough. You can't afford to let anyone or anything stop you now. You've come too far. You've fought too long. You've survived too much. This is your time to walk in strength, to rise with clarity, to serve with wisdom. Stop wasting your oil on people who won't even pick up their cross. You were made for more. You were chosen to shine. You've got too much destiny ahead of you to keep looking back at people who refuse to grow with you. So keep your eyes forward, keep your heart open, and protect your soul. Because a healthy soul isn't one that says yes to everything. It's one that knows when to say enough. There's something sacred about your next season. It's not just another chapter, another routine, another stretch of time. It's a divine transition. And the truth is, not everyone who started with you is meant to walk into what's coming. There are people, mindsets, and patterns that belong to your wilderness, but they have no place in your promised land. But here's where it gets difficult. Sometimes the things that hurt you the most are the things you're most attached to. Sometimes the relationships that drain you the most are the ones you've convinced yourself you can't live without. Sometimes the version of you that no longer fits is the one you're still trying to resurrect. Because it feels familiar, because it's what they recognize, because you're afraid of who you'll become if you fully let go. But freedom will always require a goodbye. There's a version of you that they loved, one that stayed quiet, one that didn't ask for more, one that tolerated dysfunction because you didn't know you were worthy of peace. But now you've healed. You've grown. You've awakened to the truth of who you are, and that scares people who were comfortable with your silence. They're not angry because you changed. They're angry because they didn't. They liked you broken. They liked you manageable. They liked you always saying yes, always being available, always accepting less than you deserve. But now that you've realized your worth, now that you've chosen to protect your peace, they're calling you distant, calling you fake, saying you're different. And you are different. You're not who you used to be. You don't move the way you used to move. You don't think the way you used to think. You've been transformed. And that's not arrogance, that's deliverance. You've been delivered from people pleasing, delivered from insecurity, delivered from needing validation from those who never saw your value in the first place. You're not obligated to take broken people into your healing just because you used to be one of them. You can still love them, but you don't have to carry them. You can still pray for them, but you don't have to stay in the same place to prove you care. Sometimes the greatest act of love is distance. Sometimes protecting your peace means walking away with no explanation, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity, because your soul is finally healthy enough to stop dancing with dysfunction. There's a weight that comes with elevation. There's a cost to going higher. You can't fly with anchors still tied to your feet. And often, those anchors come dressed as friends, relationships, habits, and fears. They want you to stay the same because your growth exposes their stagnation. Your clarity exposes their confusion. Your freedom reminds them they're still in chains. But you were never called to dim your light just so others don't feel convicted. You weren't created to blend in. You were created to lead, to rise, to walk in boldness. And not everyone can handle that. Stop trying to carry people who have no intention of healing. Stop wasting tears over people who choose to stay broken. You've got to understand, not everyone wants to be free. Not everyone wants change. Some people love the drama, love the cycle, love the chaos. They don't want solutions. They want sympathy. And when you stop feeding that, they'll accuse you of being cold. But you're not cold, you're called. There's a difference between helping someone and enabling them. A healthy soul learns to discern the difference. There's a kind of compassion that comes from wisdom. One that says, I see your pain, but I can't drown trying to save you. You're not being cruel when you choose boundaries. You're being faithful. Faithful to the call on your life. Faithful to your peace. Faithful to your purpose. Because here's the truth. If the enemy can't destroy you, he'll distract you. And often, he does it through people who pull on your heart, but poison your mind. They say the right things, but drain your spirit. They smile in your face, but sabotage your focus. And you keep explaining, keep trying to make them understand, hoping if you just show them enough love, they'll change. But some people are not in your life to be helped. They're in your life to halt you. It's time to release what God never told you to carry. You've been weighed down by unnecessary assignments. You've been trying to be the savior in someone else's story, when God only asked you to be a witness. There is a version of you that is only waiting on one thing, your release of what no longer belongs. You see, when you begin to walk into your next level, you don't just need strong gifts. You need strong discernment, because some battles aren't worth fighting. Some conversations aren't worth having. Some doors aren't worth opening. Just because they're knocking doesn't mean you have to answer. A healthy soul is not obligated to chaos. And hear this, just because they have access to your number doesn't mean they deserve access to your peace. You're allowed to silence the noise. You're allowed to decline the call. You're allowed to say no without a 3-paragraph explanation. You're allowed to make space for healing, for growth, for rest. You're stepping into a season where peace is your priority. Not perfection, not popularity, not performing. Just peace. And peace doesn't always look like calm waters. Sometimes peace looks like walking away. Sometimes peace looks like blocking a number. Sometimes peace looks like letting the misunderstanding stand. Because when you know who you are, when your soul is whole, you no longer feel compelled to defend it. Your identity isn't threatened by their confusion. Your direction isn't altered by their detour. You stop needing closure when you realize their access was the real issue. Not everyone who started with you is meant to finish with you. And that's not a loss. It's a graduation. You're evolving, and evolution demands separation. When a snake sheds its skin, it doesn't apologize to the skin it left behind. It simply moves forward. You've been trying to take everyone with you, trying to explain your growth, trying to carry their fears, trying to be loyal to dysfunction. But what if loyalty to others has been disloyalty to yourself? What if the next version of you can only be born through surrender? You're not being prideful when you stop tolerating cycles. You're not being judgmental when you protect your space. You're finally choosing to value what God placed inside you. Because your assignment requires energy. Your calling requires clarity. Your peace is not optional, it's essential. You can't pour from an empty cup, and you certainly can't pour into people who poke holes in your cup while pretending to honor your heart. It's time to rise, to walk boldly, to love without carrying what was never yours to begin with. No more rehearsing old battles. No more revisiting dead places. No more explaining to those who chose confusion. If they wanted to understand, they would have asked. If they were meant to come with you, they would have grown. There's power in release, power in silence, power in walking away, not as a victim, but as someone who finally understands that peace is worth protecting. So bless them, love them, pray for them, but keep walking. Not everyone gets a front row seat in your next chapter. Not everyone deserves to know how the story ends. You're not here to prove. You're here to be free, to be bold. And if they can't handle that, let them watch you rise anyway.